Call the meeting to order here in a moment. Clerk Eckertswiller, you all set over there, sir? Okay. Everybody all set up? Mr. Smith? Snowball, we're live? Okay. Perfect. Okay, so it is 2:00. I am going to call the meeting to order. My name is Tom Hutchison. I'm Deputy Mayor. I'm also the Chair of the Committee of Adjustments meeting. And welcome, everyone. This is the March the 5th, 2024 Committee of Adjustment meeting. And we do have quorum because all members are present. For this meeting, we're using both audio and video. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the Westgray website at www.westgray.com. Technology for this meeting is being managed by the Westgray staff. And please refrain anybody virtually from pressing any or clicking any buttons during the meeting. And before we continue, I'm going to ask Ms. Noble to do an overview on the electronic side of it.
As noted at the opening of the meeting, public participation must be done through Zoom. Members of the public joining virtually wishing to participate in this portion of the meeting may do so in one of the two ways. If you have joined via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. This will let us know that you would like to speak. Alternatively, *9 can also be used to lower your hand. If you have joined virtually, you can either raise your hand by clicking either the blue or yellow hand icon located in the bottom corner of your screen, or by sending a chat to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, either stating that you would like to speak or what you would like read into the record on your behalf.
Okay, thank you. Item number 2 is the purpose of this meeting. Secretary Treasurer, Ms. Wilden, could you please provide your comments?
The purpose of the meeting today is to allow the presentation of 2 consent applications and 1 minor variance, and to allow interested parties of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments regarding the applications. On February 16th, 2024, notice of this public hearing was posted at the subject properties and circulated to the prescribed persons and bodies and property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands. A public registry for the applications is available by email at communications@westgray.com. And if any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision on one of the applications, they are to provide their name and mailing address by email or via the meeting chat function for the corresponding registry. This will entitle one to be advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing in the event the decision on the application is appealed. Over to you, Chair. Sit over to you.
Thank you. Your mic's still on it, so that's why I was looking at the queue there. Okay, thank you very much. And item number 3 is disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. And members of the committee, if there's anything to declare, you can do it at this time. And if not, if one should arise during the meeting, of course, you can declare at that time. So seeing none, I am going to move on to item number 4, and that's the approval of the minutes. Under 4.1, we'll be looking to approve the minutes of the February the 6th, 2024 Committee of Adjustment hearing. So I'll be looking for a mover. Okay. Member Townsend. We have a seconder, please. I'll go with Member Eccles. Thank you. Is there any comments, questions? No? Committee members? No? So we'll call the vote. All those in favor, you can raise your hand. I see all members are in favor. There's none opposed. That motion has carried. Okay, item number 5. This is our first application of 2 today. This is application number B01 2024 and A01 2024-Moore 421272 concession 6 NDR. And then following that, we're going to go to 5.1, and this is the report from our planning staff, Planner Smith. And Planner Smith, if you could read your report regarding this application and any other written or verbal comments you may have received up till the start of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask you to go to page 9 in the planning report, which will come up on screen for the members of the audience and for those online. Right, if you would
Clerk
scroll
Smith, you
down.
said page 9, you want us to go to?
Yes, please.
you.
Unless we have a different, we can see highlights.
Is there any way to enhance that on the screen for the audience here?
Page 9 of the total package versus page 9 of the. Where'd that go? Page 9 of 34. Okay. Highlights. So page 2, actually. The purpose of the application is to sever a lot approximately 18.1 hectares and to retain a 22.4 hectare lot on which the existing buildings would be located. Proposed lot creation is illustrated on Schedule A within the report. I'll ask you to move to the diagram so we can see that. That will be getting there. Page 15 of 32, I guess, on yours. And we're going to take a look at pictures. Right there. Okay, no, wrong one. Can we go up? Couple pages. Right application. We'll start there. Thank you. Start here. Apologies. The location of the lot, as we mentioned, is on the south side of concession 6 NDR. This is a picture of the county official plan. The white area is designated rural. That is important for this type of application. The green area is within the natural environment or hazard areas position or part of the county official plan also. Can we go to the next picture, please? Next page down.
That would be the West Gray zoning.
Line, thank you. You'll be able to see the proposed severed parcel and the proposed retained parcel. The new lot line is to follow an existing fence line, which is why the lot area is slightly modified from a traditional split right down the middle, and also to take into consideration the existing barn on the property at the north end of the retained lot. Overall, we're looking at roughly 257 meters of frontage and 147 on the retained lot. Now we're going to go back to policy, if you don't mind. Okay. Page, just go back to page 9 of 34.
Excuse me. If
There
you
we
could
go.
start from the top.
We'll do
then,
that
Mr.
again.
Smith, so we can, thank you.
Municipally identified as 421272 concession 6 on the south side of concession 6 NDR. Again, 40.5 hectares in size, designated rural land use and hazard. And the Appendix B within the official plan also identifies a significant woodlands constraint. The lot is currently zoned A2 rural and natural environment in the West Gray zoning bylaw. The existing barn is for horses, but has only been used for storage for the last number of years. And approximately 22 hectares of land are cash cropped by the farmer, by an area farmer. The Habermarl Creek meanders through the rear part of the property. That's where we're getting the natural environment zoning from the West Gray zoning bylaw. And the balance of the property is in pasture and scrub land. Abutting lands in this area are predominantly agriculture and forestry. There are some residences in the old historic community of Habermel. Okay. Again, as I mentioned, the severed lot will be less than 20 hectares in size. It necessitates some relief from our zoning bylaw for that zone versus a minor variance application, which we're also hearing this afternoon. Again, the owner's intent is to use an existing fence line as the boundary area as opposed to moving a number of things around to get an exact 20 hectare and 20 hectare split on the property. Okay. We did receive comments from various agencies as summarized in your report from Public Works, West Gray Building, and the County of Gray and the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. There are no general issues overall with the submission on for both the minor variance and the consent. At the time we wrote the report and uploaded, we did not receive any paper comments. We have received comments from 2 separate property owners since the time the report was uploaded for your review. I can summarize those at the moment. Both the comments are of the opinion that the number of severances in some parts of West Gray and this area in particular is certainly getting up in the high area. The more severances that we have, the more concern there is for agricultural operations to be able to operate without too many issues with their neighbors, and things like livestock operations in particular can be impacted by severances and so on and so forth within the agricultural area. New lots, of course, bring additional road traffic and additional neighbors into an agricultural area in that regards too. I believe that the individuals are also here this afternoon to speak to committee if they so wish to desire that. I reviewed the applications, both the consent and the minor variance under both the Planning Act, the Provincial Policy Statement, the County of Gray Official Plan, and the Municipalities Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. The Planning Act does set out a number of requirements we need to take a look at when we look at the creation of lots in general. Overall, we do find that this particular lot does satisfy the requirements of the Planning Act as set out in the planning report. Within the Provincial Policy Statement, we take a look at the designation of what we call a designation on the land. In this particular case, the Gray County Official Plan designates the parcel as rural. We then take a look at the consent policies in the Gray Official Plan under rural and find that those policies are more lenient than what we will find in a pure agricultural area. That's not to say that the property in this particular case or its neighbors are not farmed. What the official plan is saying that the area is has possibly a lower soil capability, which means it's maybe not as good for agriculture. It's significantly broken up in terms of farm sizes and so on and so forth already, and therefore it has a rural designation on it, therefore giving us rural policies that are more permissive in terms of lot sizes than we would in an agriculture area. In this particular case, the county official plan does allow for a 20-hectare parcel to be severed from the original crown that was created at 40 hectares in particular. The woodlands at the rear of the property are not of any concern, considering that the lot will be sufficiently large in order to have both house and any other uses located well outside of any restrictive areas on the property. As I mentioned, we don't have any comments or issues from County Public Works in terms of road capacity or any of those particular issues. When we take a look at the minor variance, and I said in this particular case, we are looking at a zoning bylaw or a change to the zoning bylaw where 20 hectares is required for this particular zone. And we are requesting roughly in the area of 18.5. That 18.5 will be modified or looked at when we get to the survey for the property. So I would say kind of between 18.5 or 18 in there and the 20 in there when we get to the final decision at the end, which is why our minor variance recommendation has a kind of a plus and minus on the 18 in order to take into consideration survey. We don't ask for surveys on the front end. They are relatively expensive. We do ask for them in certain circumstances, but not necessarily in a proposal such as this one. The minor variance review, there are 4 tests under the Planning Act for a minor variance. The first test, does the minor variance maintain the intent and purpose of the Grey County official plan? The second test, does the minor variance maintain the intent and purpose of the West Grey zoning bylaw? And the third test is, would the minor variance represent an appropriate or desirable use of the land and buildings? And the final and fourth test is that the minor variance minor in nature. Overall, we reviewed all four tests and find that they do, in my opinion, pass all four tests. In regards to the minor variance minor in nature, the test looks to the overall developer proposal and it's considered minor in nature. It's not a numerical determination. We don't say, oh, it's 10% less, it's 10% more, it's 100% more. Minor in nature is taking a look at in terms of impact to neighboring property owners, in particular to the functions of the county or the municipality in terms of roads, or the functions of upper tier government also, and whether or not there's any major impact to the environment. And as I mentioned in that regard, we are of the opinion that the minor variance does pass all four tests of the Planning Act. There are no financial implications other than the possibility of appeal to the Interior Alliance Tribunal. Communications plan was required by the Planning Act. In that regard, I do recommend that both the minor variance and the consent application be consideration by the Committee of Adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Smith, for the detailed report. So that completes the presentation from our planning staff, and we'll move on to 5.2. This is verbal comments. There's two parts to this. There's committee comments, which will go to the committee members. They can have any comments, ask questions. Once we completed that, we will follow up with the comments from either the agent or members of the public. So 5.2.2. Anyways, is there anybody on the committee has any questions at this time? Or comments, questions or comments? Member Shea, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. And thanks for the detailed report. It's only my third term on council, and I've still got lots to learn about this stuff. But there's a few things that I'd like some clarification on. I think I have the gist of it, but maybe others would benefit from this as well. One of the things is that you describe the property as A2 rural and indicate that according to Grey County's plan, rural allows for a 20-acre severance off severance off of the original lot. So this is still the original lot, I presume. Okay, it is. But
Correct. That is correct.
okay, but elsewhere it indicates that if it's designated as non-farmland, only a 0.8 hectare is required. And I thought you indicated in the report that this was, even though there was some farming happening on it, it could easily be characterized as non-farmland. And I don't know why the 0.8 hectare rule isn't being applied.
I guess what we're looking at here is that the Grey OP gives options in a rural area that you can create a 0.8 hectare piece of property severance, like a residential lot. So if a 0.8 hectare residential lot is eligible for creation, then the 18.1 hectare as an agricultural lot should also theoretically be available for creation. I think that's kind of where I was trying to get at within that concept. If the applicant's going to come forward and said, oh, we want to sever 0.8 hectares, yes, they'd be allowed to do that and retain, the remainder. So again, coming back to that's 18.1, which is less than the 20. It was just to give a kind of understanding that you can do kind of both in this particular area. And just because it's not exactly 20 and it's at 18, that there shouldn't necessarily be a problem with it in the concept. I think that's what I was trying to get at.
Okay, so, okay. Could either of the resulting lots further sever 0.8 hectare unit off of each of them in the future?
The Grey OP looks at, starts with the original crown and what size it was. And we do have some slight variations in West Grey. Most of them are hundreds, but there are some 50s. The second thing it looks at is that lot located within a prime agricultural area or a rural agricultural area, because the policies then are different. Within a rural agricultural area, we can create more lots off of the original crown than we can in a prime ag area. So what we do every time we get a severance, we go back, we look at the original crown boundaries, We see what they are. Is it 100 acres? We count the number of severances already granted over the last 100 some years. And then we see whether or not there's any potential left over from that at that time.
So this is the original survey lot. There's been no severances before now. I've assumed 40 hectares is 100 acres, right? And it is designated rural, so then each of these properties would be eligible to sever an additional 0.8 hectare.
Right. What we're now running up against too is that the minimum farm size is at 20, right? So if you kind of have to make up your mind on the front end. I have a 100-acre parcel. I'm rural. I'm going to use acres. Sorry. Okay. I have a 100-acre parcel. It's rural. I'm eligible for a number of severances, but the farmland has to kind of still somewhere remain around the 20 hectare size. We're still trying to protect some degree of farmland. So when we split it already into 220s, the taking another lot off of it at 0.8 may not necessarily be possible because we're already at the minimum farm size, if you know what I mean, right? If they were to start off and said, okay, I have 100 acres, I want a 0.8 and I'm retaining, the rest of it, they might be able to take a couple of 0.8s off of it and still retain a large enough farm parcel to continue on, as opposed to this particular split of 220s.
Okay, thank you. And you also mentioned that severance can affect livestock operations. Could you clarify what that means?
Right. So in Ontario, they have something called the minimum distance separation formula. It's prepared and distributed and required by Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. It's mentioned in the PPS as a requirement. It's also mentioned in the Grey County official plan. The PPS requires that any new livestock operation that is built or expanded meet the requirements of the minimum distance separation formula. And that is calculated based on the number of animals in a barn, type of manure system it has, and the type of animal in the barn. So based on if a farmer wants to put in a new livestock barn, then regardless of where they are in the county, they have to make sure that their new barn is far enough away from existing houses and existing lots. So every time we create a lot, we create a new lot line and a new potential residential dwelling on the property, which then within livestock operation, within concept of having new livestock, adds one more potential problem to the mix.
Thank you, but it wouldn't affect things retroactively. Existing livestock operations wouldn't be affected.
So when we go to do the severance, we have to have consideration for existing livestock operations. And that is covered off in the application to the planning department about what existing livestock operations out there now, and would the new lot meet the setback to the farming out to the livestock barn. So that is required as part of our review.
Thank you.
So what basically we have, is that if the barn is there first, we protect the barn. If the house is there first, we protect the house, whatever kind of comes first.
Okay, good questions there, Member Shea. And Planner Smith, good response, sir. Now, any other committee members have any other questions or comments regarding this specific application before we go to 5.2.2, I believe? Yep, Member Eccles, go ahead, sir.
The comments were that there hasn't been any livestock in the barn for a number of years. It's been strictly storage, I think is what it was commented. The track, the horse track there is still showing. And still in, is it used? But okay.
Do you want to direct the questions, just so you're not on mic, so if we could I'll direct the questions to Planner Smith for now, and then we can open up the mic to the public. That's okay, it's just because we are virtual and some are public are attending virtually. Everything's got to go through the mic just for transparency. So Planner Smith, you have a response to that one, sir?
Actually, I will reiterate because I don't know all the aspects of the development. As mentioned by the property owner, the existing horse track is not used as a horse track at this present time and mainly more as a walking track, a large one, obviously. And the barn is, yeah, not being used in that particular sense of the word at the moment.
Maybe it's a training track for the Olympics. We'll let you go with that one. Just by splitting it, then it might become a problem down the road, but it's not being used. It's not, no problems with it. Let the neighbors work that one out. That's all. Oh, no, one other thing. In your report, Planner Smith, it was to the treasurer, financial treasurer's department, or the townships, the municipal treasurer or the township treasurer? It's two different ways it's there.
Okay, I believe you're referring to the condition of the approval for
Yes.
taxes
Yes.
in particular, that it's written two separate ways and, okay, thank you.
I couldn't catch you. I had to catch you on this one. Just, it's a little point. Former counselor, God bless her soul, if she was here. It's the municipality of West Grade, gone beyond the township. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Sure, fine.
Your mic was still on there, remember, Echo, so I'll just, do you have, okay? Go ahead, please.
Right, I was just wondering if the existing barn on the retained parcel, if it changed ownership, would the new owner be able to have livestock in that barn?
Yes. Right, we're zoned agriculture, right? We get technical, right? If we want. Simple answer is yes, you can have animals in a barn. Over a certain number of animal units in Ontario, you begin to run into some provincial legislation too, such as nutrient management. So, you have 5 or 6 cows, you're probably good. When you get up to a herd and you need to remove and dispose of manure, then you start getting into provincial legislation, which then there's some line there between you needing a nutrient management plan and not having enough land, and therefore can't have the number of animals to something else. The simple answer is yes, you can have animals in the barn. And they could possibly build a barn. They would need to meet a new barn, would need to meet a minimum distance separation from neighboring property owners.
Any other comments or questions from the committee members? Okay, so that completes that. We are gonna go now to the public portion. And this will allow, first off, Mr. Davidson, before you go, I'm going to have Ms. Noble explain how anybody virtually could participate in this portion of it. And then after we've completed that, if you could let me know if anybody is on the screen that wishes to speak, or if you received any converse or communications. And once we've completed that, then we will go to the members of the public that are in attendance or their agents. Go ahead, please.
As noted at the opening of the meeting, public participation must be done through Zoom. Members of the public joining virtually wishing to participate in this portion of the meeting may do so in one of two ways. If you've joined via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. This will let us know you would like to speak. Alternatively, *9 can also be used to lower your hand. If you have joined virtually, you can either raise your hand by clicking either the blue or yellow hand icon located in the bottom corner of your screen, or by sending a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, either stating that you would like to speak or what you would like read into the record on your behalf.
Okay, I'll actually have you read that now. Again, this is to speak in favor or opposed to the application. So if you could read that one, and this is just coming in on a chat line, or is this a letter?
It's Daryl and Angela asking why we haven't read their letter yet. What's the question?
Okay. Sorry, go ahead. So the question is is this an online chat, just for clarity? They're asking why we haven't, and I will go over to Clerk Eckertswiller, who's there. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the individual online has submitted written comments that the Secretary Treasurer is going to read into the records. So the individual online is just wondering why that hasn't happened yet. So we will get to that.
Oh, just go ahead, please. I didn't hear you, Ms. Noble. Are they online then?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can unmute them.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. If you could state your name for the record, please, and you are
Yeah.
live.
Angela Braithwaite and Daryl Braithwaite. We're both here. And we did write a letter. And our concern was exactly what both Counselor and Mr. Eccles had both said. We farmed here for over 35 years. And my father-in-law has farmed over here, butts up to her property 60 years. So we all have livestock. So that is a big issue for us, exactly what was said. Also, it's under the lot. We feel that, you know, if we start chopping up these farms, what do we have to give to our kids later on? So we are just concerned as, you know, farmers and lovers of our livestock, concerned for them as well. And yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have received your correspondence, and we would like to read that now before I go over to the agent or members of the public. We have appropriate time to do that. So at this time, we will read your your letter that you've submitted into record. Go ahead, please, Ms. Bowden.
Okay, I received two letters stating the same thing, so I'll read one of them. Angela Braithwaite and Daryl Braithwaite. They're opposing the consent of the application to sever approximately 18.1 hectares of rural land due to it being under the reduced lot area that the zoning bylaw requires 20 hectares. They feel that the land should be kept intact as a large parcel to protect agricultural land in its future development. They're also requesting copies of the decision.
So that completes the letters. Okay. We have another one on this application. We
Sorry,
might as well do them both. If you
Yes,
have
I do.
2 or 3, let's get them out in public now then. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I received another one later part of this afternoon from a Jason Emke and Teresa Wright opposing the consent of the application to sever approximately 18.1 hectares of rural agricultural land due to it being under the reduced lot area that the zoning bylaw requires, which is 20 hectares. There are no obstacles to avoid on the property that the newly formed lot line needs to be located as proposed, reducing the size of the proposed severance. We would suggest that the lot line be moved further to the east to accommodate the existing bylaw of the 20 hectare minimum. Agricultural land is so precious and truly need for production purposes to feed the world. There are many other acreages in West Gray less suitable for agricultural production than the said property in question. To be clear, we are not opposing the severance, just the minor variance. The severance should remain at 20 hectares. Additionally, considerations would be the impact for future agriculture growth on our farm and property buildings allowed to be a sustainable farming operation. Next generation growth is just around the corner with all our children interested in agriculture and growing the business. Would additional livestock buildings be allowed to be built, or would setback distances come into play even more than they already are? With the newly formed lot, are the applicants planning to build on it? Which could impact our operations livelihood. One other area of concern is the drainage that crosses the current farm that drains the corner of the 6th concession inside Road 5. This has been in poor repair for many decades and is not functioning the way it is intended and floods the neighboring lands. Some excavation work needs to be completed at a field crossing on the Moore property to allow water to get away to the creek. I am not sure if this is a municipal obligation or landowner, but it is an issue. If the newly formed lot was to be sold, this issue should be addressed before sale of property in the case of incurring costs. Please consider all the above mentioned items which, when making decisions on the minor variance, as these all have consequences that have the potential to reach further than just one decision on the said property. Any further considerations, comments, they want to be advised. So then we had one more come in just before council, and this one is from Douglas and Susan Schaus. As a property owner immediately located adjacent to the subject property described above, please be advised that we do not support the minor variance in order to sever the existing farm into 2 parcels. The severed parcel of 18.1 hectares would almost certainly have a new resident constructed on it, which could cause potential problems in the future for the existing agriculture operations in the area. Once one severance is granted, it will inevitably lead to further applications from other persons who wish to develop adjoining land. This has already happened in this immediate area. Our own farm has had 3 severances before we purchased it. We have had a severance to the west of our farm. All down the 6th concession to the east, there have been numerous severances, also to the north and to the west. Another new house would create a competing use for the predominantly agriculture area. Our view is to prevent an incompatible and potentially conflicting use rather than minimizing the incompatibility once the use is established. We have had a severance application in the past from the southern edge of our farm, and that case did end up in the Ontario Municipal Board, and the finding of the board ruled that granting the bylaw would not constitute good planning. We are not against all severances. Bentinck Township has had many areas that should have houses constructed on them, providing it will not create problems for existing farming operations. We also request a copy of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment. That's it. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. And before I go turn it to the members in the public that are in attendance today, I'm going to check with Ms. Noble to see if anything else has come in that last 10 minutes. No? Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it up to members of the public that are in attendance here. Well, one moment, please, Ms. Noble.
Good afternoon, Jason Emke here and Teresa Wright. Just in further.
Good afternoon and welcome, and good afternoon, welcome, and go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Just a further comment to my letter there. I think that was some shared concerns from the other parties as well, not just ourselves. But a little bit of clarity. During the adjudication here, we've talked about zoning on this property. So between being rural and agriculture. So the entire property at the present time, is it zoned all rural or is it zoned all agriculture or a combination of both?
We'll have Planner Smith respond to that one.
The words rural and agriculture refer to the County of Grey official plan. Those are the words we use under that, which gives us our rules for severances versus the zoning on the property, which is an A2, I believe, A2 rural.
Thank you, Planner Smith.
Just a further comment there with your, if we refer it to it as rural, the way I understand just in the last 10 minutes here, then our severance guidelines are considerably a lot different than they are if it's agriculture, correct?
That is correct.
So once again, I will ask, are we talking a rural property or agriculture? Because we referred to it in this session both as rural and agriculture.
So the property is used for agriculture. Mind you, you can have cows, horses on agricultural property that isn't very good. So when we refer to looking at the severance, we need to take a look at the rural policies of the County of Gray official plan is where we get the rules regarding the 20 hectares. And then we look to the West Gray zoning bylaw and its A2 rural zone for the size of the parcels also. So agriculture just is describing the uses that are going on in the general area, and we differentiate the word that use from a designation about the type of land on the property. So it is different, but they are related. Is about as good as I can give you at the moment. Sorry.
You have a follow-up,
Okay,
sir?
thank you.
Any additional comments?
None from us here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Noble, I'm going to check one more time before we do go to live audience here. Is anybody else raising hand? Any other comments? No chats? Okay, thank you. All right, so now we're to the members of, sorry for everyone to have to wait, but I figure we'll clean up the virtual. So anybody who'd like to speak that's in attendance here today, you can just please to go to the table here. Mr. Davidson, you're no stranger to that desk, sir. So if you could just, well, first off, welcome, state your name for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Ron Davidson. I'm a planning consultant. I have the same credentials as Mr. Smith over there. He might be a bit older and he might be a bit wiser. I said wiser. Thank you. David has explained a lot of stuff, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, but maybe I can just sort of piggyback on that, and it might help the members of the public explain this because it is confusing. When the committee deals with a severance, they have to be satisfied that it conforms with the County of Gray official plan and the provincial policy statement. The County of Gray official plan has established two categories of land in the countryside, if you will. They've taken what is called prime agricultural land. That's a term that's used in Ontario. And that means, as the name would imply, we probably shouldn't be touching this. So in the official plan, you'll see that identified as agricultural in quotes, okay? So that's a designation. It's not a zone, that's completely different. In the agriculture designation, it's almost impossible to get a severance. The minimum lot area requirement is 40 hectares. So unless you have 80 hectares and care to split it into 40, you're out of luck, except in one situation where you're a bona fide farmer and you own other farms and you have a house that's surplus to your needs, you can sever off a small lot. But other than that, we would not be here today if these lands were designated agricultural in the County of Gray official plan. The other side of the coin, the lands are therefore designated rural. The rural policies, as David was explaining, does allow for limited lot creation, and the county defines limited lot creation as up to 3 lots being severed off per original 100-acre, what we call crown surveyed parcel. This crown parcel is known as Lot 7, Concession 6, NDR, in the former Bentic Township. No lots have been severed off. In theory, underscore theory, you could sever 3 lots from this 100 acres, or you could consider that. But then there are other policies that come into play, which says, well, why, maybe you can't do that. And certainly one of those policies is setback from barns, minimum distance separation, MDS. So there is a required setback from everybody's barn. And if you don't meet it, you don't get your severance. We've taken a look at all the barns in the area, including the applicant's barn, and it was treated as a barn, just so the Sharon or a future landowner can put livestock back in there, and it'll have no bearing on the severance. There have been I have done an MDS calculation. There's arcs around everybody's barn, and any house that is created on this new severed parcel would have to be set back from the road and outside of those MDS arcs. So there should not be any impact on livestock because on adjacent livestock facilities, because that's what's been taken into account, the setback from barns. In terms of should we stick to 20 hectares versus 18 hectares, just so you know, the County of Gray official plan does not state that it has to be 20 hectares. You can have, as David indicated, a lot as small as 0.8 hectares. The general rule of thumb is go big or go small. So keep it around 20-ish or keep it down to 0.8. When you start getting into, say, a 10-hectare parcel of land, and if it is used for agricultural purposes, then you start creating smaller farm parcels. And we could have this debate all day about whether or not smaller farms are good, because you'll get some people saying, hey, I'd love a 10-hectare parcel of land. But anyways, planners try to stick with either keep it small, 0.8 hectares, or try to keep it as large as possible, which is close to the 20 acres. We wouldn't be here today if West, and I'm not suggesting you do this, but if West Gray had a different zoning bylaw. Because in other municipalities, not that that's right, but in other municipalities, they don't have a minimum lot area requirement in their zoning bylaw anymore. They just follow the policies of the Gray County official plan, and that's it. Two that come to mind are Meaford and Gray Highlands. Again, neither good nor bad. I'm just telling you that some municipalities, if you conform with the official plan, then you're fine. You don't have to amend the zoning bylaw. So we are amending it through by way of a minor variance. I don't have too much more to say. I will say this, as you're likely aware, reason why we can't push the fence, the new lot line over is, first of all, we had to skirt around the barn. And there's a provision in the zoning bylaw that requires an 18.3 meter side yard from a barn. So that's why the lot line at the front of the property is pushed over to the west. Then once we get behind the barn, we're following a crop line, and then we hit a fence line. And that's where for the most part, that I would say about 80% of the new lot line between the severed and retained parcel follows a fence line. So that was the idea there. I think I had a couple more things. Yeah, so again, the idea of creating the farm lots, that's of 20 hectares in size or 18 hectares in size or whatever, that's something county council decided on when they approved their official plan. I think it's 2019, and it is accepted. And yeah, and lastly, I mean, there's an opportunity for folks to try to stop the committee from approving this. But I know when David indicated any financial implications to the municipality would be if it landed at the tribunal. The only way it would land at the Ontario Land Tribunal is if you refused it and Sharon decided to take it to the tribunal, or if an agency appealed it. I'm not proud in saying this or happy to say this, but the neighbors don't have an opportunity to appeal severance or a minor variance in Ontario anymore as of January 1st, 2023, just so you know that. That's it. I'm trying to be helpful in terms of explaining stuff, and maybe when you're done talking, I can speak again or try to answer your questions if they're directed at me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. If you could just hit that mic, sir. Thank you very much for attending. And Mr. Davidson, maybe just before, if you're thinking about departing, in case there's any questions from the public, because if you've offered that, extended that, if you could.
Just let them sit in the corner.
Yeah, don't go far though, sir. Ms. Noble, you had obviously virtually, but I'm going to complete this portion here because we've, and I will go back to that just before we move on. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to, that's in attendance that would like to speak to this? And if so, just please proceed to the table. There's a gray button on the mic. You just push that, and we will ask you to state your name for the record, please. See, well, Mr. Davidson will certainly help you. And please have a seat and welcome.
My name is Via Sebastian, and we're the immediate neighbors to Sharon's property on the south side. We're on concession 5, and we are our northern part abuts her south side. We are not really happy with severances of farmland. We own 100 acres, and we were considering on separating 20 acres some 5 years ago. And we were advised not to do it because the Gray County does not allow severances of farmland. So her property is also 100-acre farmland. So we don't understand why she's requesting a severance. We have, as mentioned by other people, we have so many farms that are being cut in half, which is not good for farmers. In the end, we are happy that we didn't go through to sever our farm, because the lifestyle and the benefits of farms in our area is what we want in the rural areas. We want to have the lifestyle which we really appreciated during the COVID years. We had the freedom and the space to enjoy our lifestyle. We were not cooped up like most people in the towns who had ended up with many mental conditions. We like where we live, although we are retired, but we are still farming, and we appreciate that we have our farm and the size of the farm, because 100 acres is viable. Most farms also have bush and lakes, so that takes away from the actual farmland that can be farmed. In our concession, in our area of Bentinck Township, there are so many small parcels. In our neighborhood, there are many 50-acre farms, and they are all rural. People don't know what to do with all that land because it's not viable for farming. You may only cash crop it, and that's about all. So we are not very happy of more farmland being cut into 50-acre parcels. Thank you. What? Yeah. Oh, yeah. My husband says we are now organic farmers. Yeah, that's okay, Dita.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anybody else in attendance today that would like to speak to this item? You sure are. The mic is open. If you want to, well, your hand's up, so we want to go now. You'll have the opportunity if you'd like to respond or rebuttal if somebody asks a question. But by all means, please, there. And again, just the gray mic, if you could state your name for the record, and then, yep, Mr. Davidson will help. He's, well, there. Now, if you could state your name for the record, please.
Sharon Moore, I'm the applicant. Okay. I just have a couple of notes. It's been mentioned by a number of people, between County Road 10 and Highway 3, which is 3-block section, there, I counted them, 21 severed lots already, and that's not counting the original buildings. So this area is already got a lot of buildings in it. Right around the corner is Habermickle Lake. It's got a ton of cottages on it. And so this area has already has a lot of lots on it. It's suited to that. West Gray, with all its swamps, bush, gravelly soil and whatnot, is suited to this kind of activity. Now, one of the things that the idea that farmland should not be severed and instead be merged, or more specifically available for any neighboring farmer to merge with their holdings, you know, I find that a little concerning because we know the cost of farmland nowadays. And if you want young farmers to start, they need to start somewhere. They need to be able to buy a 50-acre parcel of land to get started. And that is one of the reasons why I'm interested in doing this severance, is to make it available to someone who might want a homestead. I would rather that kind of environment than what we have in Bruce County with 300-acre farms that no farmer is ever going, young farmer is ever going to be able to buy into. So that is one of my objectives that I want to bring to your attention. As far as my farm and whether it's an agricultural use farm, the severance basically divides the mostly agricultural use part of it on the east side into one section, and the section that has the wetlands and whatnot on the west side. That's kind of how the severance is going. Now, the suitability of the agricultural land, it's sandy, it's got stones, as I found out when the farmer whose rents plowed it up this year, it's full of stones. It's not prime agricultural land. It's suitable for someone who wants to homestead, and that's its purpose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from any of the members in attendance today, public members that are? Oh. And Ms. Noble, I'll go back to you for virtual comment. We do have, yeah, we do have somebody that had raised their hand or sent a comment in, so.
Hi, just me again, Jason Emke here, Teresa Wright. Just with regards to the proposed line, I'm still going to argue the fact that that line could be moved further to the east. The existing fence that Mr. Davidson had talked about there. I've been on this farm a number of times. There's not much of a fence there. I know if I pastured my sheep there, I would have a phone call before noon from Sharon to tell me to politely get my sheep off her front lawn. They would not stay where they are. I don't know what constitutes as a fence, but the old fence line that's there is not really a fence. That's where, and as far as a laneway for the farm and all that stuff, there's not any gravel driveway or anything like that. It's a sand path. Therefore, I would say we stick with the bylaw that's currently in place, 20 hectares minimum.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions, sir? Okay, thank you. Ms. Noble, is there anybody else online? Do you have a comment?
There's one other comment. When was
No.
the last time this land was tested for noxious?
Okay, we will need it. I'll get you for final comments. So I'm sorry, could you read, state whoever asked that question for the record? And if you could reread it, please. No, we do need the name before we can read it in the record, please. Then I guess I will go to Mr. Davidson response to that. And then I will acknowledge your hand raised to go for, well, no, when we complete this one here. That's fine. Are they ready to go? Because they will have to state their name again, and then they can read your question. So if you could unmute. One moment, please. Okay, so you can just state your name for the record, and the floor is yours. Go ahead, please.
Angela Braithwaite. I was just wondering, when was the last time the soil was tested? He said it doesn't, agriculture, it's not classified. When was the last time it was tested that it's not good soil? Because we've been farming our land, which butts up to the property, and we have nothing but good crops. And so I don't know how they constitute what's good land and what's not good land. And when Sharon said about the land being farmed, she's never farmed the land. She's never put sheep, horses, cattle, anything on. So I don't know how she would have an opinion on how the land is or how anything would grow on it.
Okay, any further questions? I am going to go to Mr. Davidson for a response. So do you have any other comments? So before we,
Nope, that's it.
or actually Planner Smith is going to respond to that. Planner Smith, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quite a few years ago, the province of Ontario, together with the government of Canada, produced soil maps for Ontario. All the various counties produced soil maps. It was done through partnerships between those two levels of government. At that time, soil surveyors went out into the field, used air photos, did sample pits in various locations across counties, and produced soil maps that identify Canada Land Inventory, CLI information. Canada Land Inventory categorizes land in Ontario and in other places in Canada on a 1 through 7 scale. Land class number 1 being the best land, and class number 7 being, as you can imagine, exactly the opposite. Classes 1, 2, and 3 under the Canada Land Inventory are considered to be prime agricultural lands in Ontario, at least. 4 through 7 being considered to be non-prime. Those maps were produced again by the province through OMAFRA at the time. Those maps were then digitized. In other words, we took them into a computer program because those maps had lines drawn on them that showed different landforms in different areas. And then those different 1 through 3s were grouped together into areas of prime, and the 4 through 7s were grouped into areas of non-prime. Grey County is a mishmash of, as people have mentioned, of all kinds of different things from glaciers and everything else. So it's not unusual to find some prime land within rural and some rural land within prime. But in order to have a map that makes some degree of sense, we've had to merge some things together. So when was the last time it was quote unquote tested? It was tested when the Grey County soil map was developed by the province of Ontario a number of years ago. Soil doesn't change necessarily per se, or a period of time, millions of years, yes, but not in the period of time that it was done. So the categorization of this particular area of Grey County as rural is a result of the mapping exercises done by the province, then taken in by the County of Grey Geographic Information people, and producing a map that has rural and agriculture on it.
Thank you, Planner Smith. Any other virtual comments or questions? Hands up before I close that part? No? Anybody have final words in attendance here? Any final words? Mr. Davidson, go ahead. You're good. Thank you.
Just very briefly, and yeah, thanks, David, because that's exactly what I was going to say. And not to be disrespectful to anybody, but I fail to see if you're driving down the road and you're looking at sitting on the road parked and you see a lot line. Can you say that's an 18 hectare property or a 20 hectare property? It couldn't possibly impact on anybody and the neighbors. That's not possible. That's more about, certainly that's an opinion, not a question. Thank you.
Mr. Davidson. Okay. Any other final comments? Go ahead, please. Press the mic again to see you live. Thank you.
Sharon Moore again. Just concerning the fence, I had a new fence installed about 3 years ago. Maybe Mr. Emke hasn't seen it yet, but it doesn't run all the way back, but it runs halfway back on my property. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, any other comments from the public? Okay. Ms. Noble, good. Okay, that completes all of item 5.2, including 5.2.1 and 5.2.2. So the comment period is now officially closed. So this takes us to 5.3. We do have a recommendation before us in the report from the planner, and I am going to be looking for a committee member to put a motion forward. So anybody would like to discuss this? Decision by the committee. This is where we're at. Okay, Member Eccles, the floor is yours, sir.
I'll move the recommendation so we can get it onto the floor for an amendment.
Thank you. So I do have a move by Member Eccles. I do need a seconder for that recommendation. Member Hutchinson, you're seconding that? Okay. Okay, so we do have the recommendation on the floor. Now we're going to be looking for a conversation around, and this is from committee members only, around the recommendation. Member Eccles, go ahead, sir.
Through you to Planner Smith. I'd asked the question earlier about the racetrack, and I believe the inner part of the racetrack is cropped at this time, irregardless of where the line is proposed. Am I correct in that? Yep. I've driven by it quite a few times going home, so I do know the answer to that one. So the way the fence is proposed, or the separation of the two properties, especially in and around the racetrack or the walking track, however you want to propose it. If that come up part way. And I think, whether it's at the 0 or the 258.0 is right in the middle of that track on the picture. If there was an amendment to that, and I think Mr. Emke mentioned something about that as well too, that to maximize the agricultural property on the west to the severed piece, if that went to the east, basically to your driveway where it comes into the property right now, and went to the road, would that give us approximately that 20 hectares? And if that was the case, would we be here for a minor zoning amendment? Would that take that out? Basically, it's split down the middle, now it's 20 hectares. Mr. Smith.
If you move the line, you can get bigger or smaller, there's no doubt about it, right? So, yeah, if you move in one place, you're gonna get, well, now you're gonna get 2 hectares out of it. I don't know. We will comment on is that with an existing fence line, it's been there for a few years. Removing, yeah, right. You're not talking about that far down. You're talking closer to the roadway kind of thing in order to do so. And all I can say is, again, is we reviewed the proposal at roughly the 18. We don't see an issue with it that, in our opinion, it does pass a particular test. Can it meet 20? Sure. Is that the proposal? No. So review the proposal. Is it viable? Yes, which is why you're getting the recommendation from this department for the approval.
But still, my question is, and I guess maybe I'll turn to the planner on this. If that line was the proposal made to the proponent, would that mean that we would be here for the zoning amendment? Minor variance.
Okay. Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. We'd have I'm not sure if you can see, you'd have a new lot line that was pushed east. First of all, through you, Mr. Chair, I want to make sure that Sharon actually talks to this question, but the answer is for me, I don't know. I don't have the ability right in front of me here to calculate whether or not we have an extra 2 hectares of land. My guess is less than 1 hectare, but we're closer to 20, but probably not 20.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to remind the committee that we do have the motion. That's what we're discussing now. We've got to move and second it. So, and that's why, Mr. Eckers, you can carry on, but we've got to stay with too much contact outside of what we're supposed to be doing. We're still here, sir. Any other comments? Member Hutchinson, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the issue of 18 versus 20, I don't see that as being a major factor, maybe so much as the fact that the severed parcel it remains farmland, but it looks like it classifies rural, but it looks like it's being farmed or it could be farmed. Whereas the original parcel has Heifermel Creek running through it. Looks like to me that there's a lot of hazard land and land that's maybe not farmable. So to me, in some ways, it's a win in that if this parcel gets sold off to someone, maybe they can potentially farm, as the applicant has said. It gives them an opportunity to start on a smaller farm basis, and I think that's important. I think you see that happening these days, that people buy small chunks of property and they do micro farming and whatnot, or organic farming, or whatever the case may be. So I think it can be an opportunity going forward. I'm hoping that this farmland would stay basically as to be farmed, as if possible to be farmed. And so I think it can be a win-win. So I'm going to vote in favor of this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Hutchinson. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Member Shea, go ahead, sir.
I agree with Member Hutchinson, and I think the idea, and with Planner Smith that we're here to discuss the application that's before us, not some hypothetical other applications. So I agree that the difference between, an acre or 2 hectare or 2 here or there shouldn't really be making that much difference. I do, and you talked about, if the land is, the severed land is going to be used for farming, and I think you talked about homesteading, so that would require building some sort of residence on the property. I'm still getting my head around MDS. It's a concept I only encountered a couple of planning meetings ago for the first time. I don't understand how, I don't know what the formula is, but I don't see how you could have a barn on the very edge of the retained property and a house, somewhere near the road on the severed property, and have that house not be within some sort of MDS tainted zone. It would only be a matter of a few feet away. Does that not create some problems for a builder on the severed property?
Yeah.
Planner Smith, I'll have to go to you, sir, because
So the MDS calculations were done for all of them with the existing sizes, right? We have to take what's on the property today in terms of size, and then Mr. Davidson, we don't calculate ourselves. We use a computer program that's provided by the province, plugs the existing numbers into the calculation, comes up with the arc, which is basically a circle around the barn. We then apply that arc to the potential severed parcel to see whether or not there's land outside of the arc that can be built on. And the answer to that is, it always in the spot where you want to build your house? Not necessarily, but the property does have sufficient land on it outside of the arc for the existing barn to have a house built on. So that's where we looked at it. If you wanted it in a particular location and it's inside the arc, life's rough. It's going to have to be outside the arc. So I can't tell you exactly what the distance is. That distance, again, varies depending on the size of the current barn, the type of animal in it, and whether or not it's solid or liquid. My guess is it's solid and a very relatively small barn, so on the smaller side. Mr. Davidson can speak specifically, Mr. Chair, to the calculations for that specific barn if so desired.
That satisfies my question.
Jay, any other comments or questions from the committee members? Okay, so, Member Eccles, go ahead, sir.
I guess I want to go back on the retained parcel. How much is being farmed on that by the cash crop? Piece on the west is
Right.
the predominant portion,
Right.
correct? On your side? Yeah, okay,
Okay. So just for clarity, we have a motion on the floor, and I think what we should do is the question should go through our planner, just if we could. And I would be looking to our clerk for, is that would be the proper process? In my opinion, it would be. So, okay, so we could direct any questions, further questions, the committee to our planner, please. Planner Smith, do you have a response to Member Eccles?
The aerial photos aren't necessarily always up to date, but the swoop provided by the county, which is, does give us an indication of the last couple of years that as much as the property's current size is being farmed. It's not unusual to see, of course, that they've left the areas that are wet and the area that's treed outside of that. So right now, as much as possible of that property is being farmed within reason, considering the wet areas and the treat areas and the creek area. That is available to us from the air photos available from the county. That's what we use. I can't give you a number of acres, but I understand it was about 12.
About 12, Mr. Smith?
On the retained side, yeah.
Thank you. Follow up, Member Eccles, sir.
yes, a lot of the discussion around, certainly from the public, is, still maximizing that the portion of the farm that is under production at this point in time or has the potential for production. And the way that is in front of us, I guess I was asking whether that little the portion up at the front in the middle of the track, and I'm not certain how much that track is, whether it's 4 hectares that are inside that track or on a mile track, I do know that it's 10 acres. So if there's a third of that, but I don't think it's a mile track, so I don't need to worry about that portion of it. It's probably 1.5 acres. But given that, it would still get us, I guess where I'm going is that it gets us closer to that 20 hectares. It's split down that there's 20 hectares on one side, 20 hectares on the other, and it maximizes the amount of agricultural production property on that severed portion. And I see if somebody buys that, the severed portion, and it was a cash cropper, that tract disappears. Can't imagine keeping 1/2 or 3/4 of a tract and a fence down the middle of it. What use or that would be. So I'm a little bit stumped because I don't believe the way it is put forward at this point in time, Planner Smith, that I would have the ability to put forth an amendment to, when it was surveyed, to give that direction, because the application isn't here and it's not really our purvey to make an amendment to the application. Am I correct with that, without deferring it and getting it?
I wouldn't
Done.
necessarily say that. You have 3 options. You could, actually probably 4, and I'll look the clerk if he nods his head. And number 1, you could vote as, there's a motion on the floor. You can vote towards the motion. And that could either pass or fail. Number 2, I'm not too sure, and maybe the clerk who understands whether it's Roberts or procedural about friendly amendments or whatever it is to various things within that. The change, if there were to be a change from 18 to 20, whatever it is certainly within the purview of, of that, of a decision of the Committee of Adjustment. It's not significantly different from the original proposal in terms of other public notification, if you know what I mean, within that. And but I'll leave it to the clerk to speak to how you get from where yourself as a committee member, where you may wish to go with that.
Thank you, Planner Smith, and through you, Chair Hutchinson. So the planner has summarized the process nicely, I will say. The motion that is before you is to grant the provisional consent and approve the minor variance subject to the conditions outlined within the report. At this point in time, there is a motion duly moved and seconded on the floor. What member Eccles is suggesting is not, in my opinion, an amendment to what's before you right now, but rather a separate, distinct motion. So in order to address that, this will either have to be withdrawn by the consent of committee as a whole or voted down. If it's voted down, this motion could not be represented without going through a motion to reconsider. So just keep that in mind as well.
Okay, committee members, are we all clear on what has been explained to us? I just want to make sure everybody's very crystal clear. Now we'll go back to member Eccles. If everybody's clear on it, that's good. Okay, member Eccles.
So just that I'm clear, the minor variance right at the present moment is, the application in front of us is at 18.1 hectares. But the minor variance that's in front of us is it could go down to as minimal as 17 hectares once the survey is done. And if that's the case, my amendment would be at 18.1, we push it to try and get it as close to 20 hectares if I was going to put forward an amendment. So I think an amendment would be in order.
I am going to ask Clerk Eckinsweller to help us with that clarity on that one. Thank you.
Through you, Chair Hutchinson, to Member Eccles, yes, that is correct. If you wanted to change that wording to have it be no less than 17 hectares, but no more than 20 or what have you, then yes, we could amend that wording. If you wanted it to be no less than 18 hectares, then we could shoot for that. It's whatever you intend. In that case, yes, your amendment would be germane to this motion and would therefore be procedurally in order.
Okay, thank you. So we do have it moved and seconded with the original recommendation that's on the report. And now Member Eccles has entertained an amendment, which would be appropriate as the clerk has suggested. So I will go back to Member Eccles.
And just as procedurally, as the mover of the motion, can I move an amendment to the motion?
Through you, Chair, yes, you can.
So I'd like to amend the motion. I was reading that therefore the proposed minimum 17 hectare non-farm lot would be in I'm trying to get it. I haven't really got it here yet. That the minimum lot at 17, but all manner or hope to move the lines to get it as close to 20 hectares as possible. Yeah. Either case proposed to a plus or minus 17 or a plus or minus 20.
Clerk Eckinsweller, go ahead, sir.
So just for clarity on that, just so I'm familiar with where we are you referring to item 2 in the recommendation, 2A or 2 rather, specifically where it states a rural lot with a minimum lot area of no less than 17 hectares?
Yeah.
So I think procedurally, in order for that to be germane to the motion, you would have to change the number 17 to something specific. So be it 18, 19, 20, whatever the case may be. So it's just swapping that number out.
As an amendment. Right.
So through you, Chair, the amending motion would be that item 2 of the main motion be amended to change not less than 17 hectares to not less than 20 hectares.
So under 2, Member Eccles, what you're saying is no less than 18.12, 220 hectares. Is that what you're, okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. The bylaw speaks to the minimum lot size to be created. So we don't use a range. So the minimum is X. I think you need to pick a number. In that discussion, the proposal, as you know, at the moment, the minimum is 17. It can be larger than that, okay, but it can't be less than that. And the severance needs to be in some respects in accordance with the proposals put by the applicants. Right, so 17, 17.1, 17.15, 19.125, I need just to no less than the number, please.
If I could, the minor variance, then it comes into play because it's less than 20. So let's say 19.5.
So through you, Chair Hutchinson, the amending motion moved by Member Eccles at this time is that item 2 of the recommendation, sorry, item 2 of the main motion be amended to change not less than 17 hectares to not less than 19.5
Yeah.
hectares. Thank you.
Any further, Member Eccles? Because I'm going to get a seconder, so if you're clear in your language here.
Yep, that's good.
Okay, so is everybody clear on the amendments that's been moved by Member Eccles? I will be looking for a seconder, then we can discuss the amended. So I'll be looking for a seconder on that. Language round number 2. Okay. Member Townsend. So now it is on the floor. Now it is open for discussion. I'll go to Member Hutchinson, and this is speaking specifically to the amendment, not to the original motion. So I want everybody to be clear on that, because I'm sure the clerk's over there looking at me. He'll be watching us. So thank you.
I'd be interested in what the planner for the applicant has to say about that, because we can pick any number we want, but if the land isn't there, or if we can't make it work, then we're voting on something that's not realistic. So I would like to hear from the applicant if that's even possible to change it.
Go to our planner. We can't open back up to the public because we're in motions on the floor.
Okay, well, maybe our planner can answer the question.
If you wouldn't mind, one more time, Counselor, question.
Well, we're saying 19.5, but according to the diagram, they're saying, roughly 17, no less than 17. But if they can't get to 19.5, then we can pick any number we want, but is there potential to even get to 19.5? Do we know that? How do we know?
So I guess the simple answer is yes. Okay, you can make this ever 20, I'll make it a little complex. You make this ever 25, okay, hectares. But we also need to look at both the severed and retained. When we begin to take it off of 1, so we wanted 220s, right? Theoretically, that's what the bylaw theoretically was after, right? It was 220s. And we're saying it's kind of tough because of the barn and its setback. So we put enough side yard on the barn in order to give it a right setback, as opposed to putting it right on the property line, which is why we move a line over and a few other little things kind of going on with it, which is why we have this jog. Okay, to take into consideration having a building far enough back from property lines and running it straight up, as opposed to having it jog in and out. So the answer to your question, yes, it's probably possible to do, but what are we also giving up and other things in terms of how far back now a new property line is from the existing buildings and so on and so forth. Mr. Davidson and the applicants took that into consideration when they proposed the jog in the line. That was one of the reasons why kind of thing going on, was it was a little funky at that north end. We couldn't run just a straight line up. That's why we have a slight variation in the proposed. We're a little bit even less than the 18 because the property isn't necessarily 100 acres to begin with. And without spending a lot of money on the survey, we're kind of a little bit of a guess. So we asked for a little bit of leeway. So my thinking is the 18, which is actually in the application, the 17 is appropriate for the application. It does give us a little setback to the barn. The lines are relatively straight coming down, a jog to the east and then straight down from there, as opposed to kind of jumping all over the place in terms of trying to get this magical, 20 acres or 20 hectares in size.
So the only way that would realistically that we would gain that is you would have to come to the barn, and then you'd have to make a cutout around the barn, and then you go straight forward. So you're going to gain a little bit, but you're going to have that jut out of where the barn is. So yeah, I don't know if that's feasible, but that's the only option I see.
Okay, anything further, Rebecca? Anybody comments or questions down? Member Shea, go ahead, please. And again, we got the amendment motion, right? Okay, thank you.
I think the planner hit the nail on the head here that, they, in their discussions and planning, looked at a number that was somewhere in the 18s and thought, without having done a proper survey, we don't know that it's going to be exactly that number. So instead of sort of tying them in, we'll say, anything above 17 will work for this, because the difference between 18 and 17 is fairly negligible. The difference between 18 and 20 is fairly negligible. So the idea of trying to get this to some magical number 20, so we may be saying, okay, you have to tear down that 3-year-old fence and move it over 12 feet. And then reconstruct it there. And that's where we're going to be able to get to a number like 19.5. This doesn't make any sense at all. The applicants and the planners, their planner, our planner, have put their heads together and have come up with this proposal. And our planner is recommending it. It's splitting the property almost in half, almost to conforming to the letter of the law. They're just asking for a little bit of wiggle room so that once the survey is done, if it turns out that there's, half a hectare missing or something like that, it's not going to blow the whole deal up. So I think we should just basically approve this as is, and trying to modify the applicant's proposal without their input seems inappropriate. If we don't think we should be passing this because of that number 17, then I would say defer it, vote it down, send it back to our planner, to their planner, to the applicants, and say, come back with a different proposal that is closer to 20. And they may say, okay, we're going to give up the barn. We're going to have the barn be part of the severed property or something. They might come up with some different rule. But I think we're sort of, it's not really our place to be micromanaging their proposal. This is the proposal that's been put before us, and I think we just need to decide. And a number north of 17 satisfies me. It'll likely be 18 something. And I think that is well within the spirit of what the regulations are looking for. So I think we should defeat the amendment and pass the underlying motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Shane. Any other comments or questions regarding the amended motion that's before us? Member Echols, go ahead, please.
I understand what Councillor or Member Shea is saying and whatnot, but we already have one jog as you come down so far, 258 meters down to the barn. Then we go 45 meters across, following the fence line down. And as you can see, about halfway back, there is no more fence. And you can see at least 3 hectares there that head in towards Habermill Lake east. If that was to be the line, 45 meters goes across there and goes straight down, that does more than give you 2 hectares there. If you're thinking that up at the top, you don't want to make another jog in and around the buildings at the east, but certainly at the back, it's very evident that that is cropland, and you're splitting it right down the middle, and no way of getting to that cropland because you're going through a hazard on Habermill Lake. So, or sorry, Habermill Creek. If the jog's there, it's made a jog at the go around the barn, comes down there so far. And maybe the aspect is, instead of going 45, maybe you go 50 or 55 to pick up that little bit of some of that agricultural ground there. But I understand the fence is there, so where the fence ends, jog in another 45 meters there and take it right to the back line. And that way you end up with the acreage and you've got it 20/20. And quite frankly, you probably don't need to have the minor variance. And for more of that, if Ashley wanted to bring that up, just to have everybody have a visual of that. I think in part of the proposal, am I not correct, Planner Smith, there needs to be a survey done on this?
Not on the front end, no. As part of the registration of the consent, yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. We do not, there are
No.
Not every circumstance would we ask for survey. In fact, we ask them for very few on the front end. Unless we have some significant issues with where property lines may be.
Right. But my point is, to be able to get this registered once it goes through and whatnot, to be able to register it as a separate property would have to be surveyed and a pin put on it.
It will definitely have to be surveyed regardless of what size is determined at the end.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay, I'm good. Well, it just.
That's fine. So,
Give the audience an idea. I've got the maps in front of me.
yeah,
I'm talking
well,
to you.
I know why you called for it, so. Are you able to get that map? Well, regardless, okay. So is there any other comments or questions on the amended motion that's in front of us? Is where I'm going right now as the chair. I'm asking for that from the committee members. So can you increase that a little bit? And then once we finish this virtual here, I will be calling the vote on this amended motion.
I guess what I was speaking to, and I'll just show you here on this portrait. I think we can see here that this is the farm portion. 45 feet here. Joe, that fence, from my understanding, comes back to this portion of it. There is no fence from here back, other than that would be a split property. Going across, and taking that portion of it straight down would give us more than 2 hectares. And it would be at the 20, wherever that would make it out, that's where it would be. And so wherever you take that portion there, to give you that 3 hectares, because the thing is, as we said, it would be no less than 17, so that would make it 20. And the farming portion of it. Keep that farmland with the predominant farm parcel.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
modifying the application to that extent would put then the retained under the 20 hectares in size. That is not the proposal. We would have to go back out in some respects to say, this is now where we're at with this side of the property now being under 20 hectares in size.
Any further, sir? Yeah,
Surveyor, across here, across there, and back. Then it's 3 hectares.
Member Shea, you had a question, a comment before I call the vote? Okay, any other comments or questions on the amended motion? So what we're doing, can I have the amended motion read? What that was, just so we're all clear on it, and then we're gonna call the vote on that amended motion. So this is what we're voting on right now.
Through Mr. Chair, that the main motion be amended to change item 2 from not less than 17 hectares to not less than 19.5 hectares.
Okay, so everybody clear in the committee with Councilor Shea? So this is on the amended motion only.
You realize we're making a change to an application which we're then going to pass without the consent or permission of the property owner. We're going to be severing off a piece of their property that no one has asked them if they're willing to sever. So I think we're in really tricky territory here. I'm not sure, clerk, if we even have the right to do something like this.
Okay, so very good question, Member Shea. I will go over to Clerk Eckenswiller as well as the planner for some advice on that, and then we are going to call the vote on this.
It's through you, Chair Hutchinson. The Committee of Adjustment is the Land Division Committee. So it is within the committee's right to make amendments to any application for consent variance, what have you, in the best interest of planning policy. It is within the committee's right to amend the recommendation or amend the motion as presented to substitute 17 hectares to 19.5. Should committee be in support of that, then that's how we proceed in that fashion.
Okay, everyone's clear on that advice? Okay, is everyone clear on the amended motion that we're going to vote on now? So for all those in favor, you can raise your hand. So we're looking for in favor of the amended motion. Let's see, two of those opposed, if you can raise your hand, please. Let's see, 5 members not in favor, so that motion has defeated. So we are back to the main motion now. So is everyone clear on the main motion? It is what the recommendation is that was in the report from our planner. Anybody have any comments or questions on the main motion of the recommendation? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the vote on that. For all those that are in favor, you can raise your hand, please. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. Those opposed, 2 opposed. So that is in favor. That motion has carried. Now we will go to item number, thank you. That was a wholesome conversation. That was one of the more tricky ones that we've had before us. That takes us to 5.4, next steps. And I will go to our planner for the next steps, please. And that will complete this application.
The decision of the committee will be signed. It'll be circulated to those agencies and to the public. As been noted previously, only certain individuals have the right to appeal. There is an appeal period for both applications. Once the appeal period is finished, then the applicant can begin, or actually they can begin work on the consent portion, which has a number of conditions attached to it that need to be met. Once the conditions are met, then the planning department will review the survey and a set of deeds, and if appropriate, have them signed and given back to the applicant in order to create the lot.
Thank you, Planner Smith. So that completes all of item number 5. We're moving along on today's agenda. That takes us to item number 6. That is application number B03 2024-Roberts-404701 Gray Road 4. 6.1. Oh, well, we are going to take 5, and then we'll be back at what, 3:50? You good? 3:50 do it? 7 minutes? Members of the committee back and staff's ready. Okay, Ms. Noble, are we live and ready to go? Staff's all ready? Okay. So where we are is, I'm gonna call back. We're at a short recess. We're on item number 6. It's application number B03 2024 Roberts 404 701 Gray Road 4. 6.1 is the planning staff's report. And if I could have, pardon me? Oh, very much. And Ashley or Ms. Nova, if I could get you to do your spiel on how people could attend virtually and participate.
As noted at the opening of the meeting, public participation must be done through Zoom. Members of the public joining virtually wishing to participate in this portion of the meeting may do so in one of two ways. If you join via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. This will let us know that you would like to speak. Alternatively, *9 can also be used to lower your hand. If you have joined virtually, you can either raise your hand by clicking either the blue or yellow hand icon located in the bottom corner of your screen, or by sending a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, either stating that you would like to speak or what you would like read into the record on your behalf.
Thank you, Ms. Noble. Okay, 6.1, report from planning staff. Planner Smith, if you could please read your report for application B03 2024, including any written or verbal comments you may have received up till the start of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of the application for B03 2024 Roberts is to sever a new residential lot of approximately 1.4 hectares with a lot frontage of 64 meters and to retain a residential lot of approximately 3.6 hectares with a lot frontage of 127 meters. The applications propose the use of a shared driveway from County Road 4 via the use of an easement / right of way in favor of the retained lot. May I ask you to go to the severance picture on page 29 of 34. On the screen in front of you, yep, we're good there. You can see in red and in green the severed and the retained portions. The County Road 4 through this section is a little funky. You can see a whole bunch of like a little island in the middle and a roadway and all the rest of it. The island doesn't exist. It's all either municipality of West Gray or County of Gray roadway owned. The parcel is on the west side of Pricefield. We're just on that edge of the old hamlet. And a number of years ago, there was some old municipal roadways all sold off, all owned by the applicant at this time, which is where we get these two particular size parcels overall. So I mentioned it doesn't show on the diagram, but both of them will have a single driveway going out to Gray Road 4. Could we go to the aerial on page 33, please? You can see the property in this particular case, and you can see the existing driveway. That is the driveway that will be used for the easement. In other words, it will be used by both properties. This sits exactly pretty much on where the new property line will go. The easement is required in this particular case because of the topography on the front end of the property. We did have the County of Gray Transportation. They are the ones who control entrances onto the property from all county roadways. They took a look at this through pre-submission consultation, and they were in agreement that an easement rather than two driveways would be a preferred option in this particular case. You also notice on the air photo a significant amount of treed area on the east side of the property, and we're going to go up one page. Sorry, that's a surprise. To page 32. Oh, one more. All right, my mistake. And you can see from the Gray County official plan mapping a significant amount of hazard forested area and other wetland on the property. None of that is in play. You can see on the far west side of the open area, looks like a farm field, but it's not. That is actually where the lot is going to be located, running all the way to the north property line. Thank you. Maybe we'll just go back and leave it on the air photo if you don't mind. Thank you. That one there, two down. The lot is designated in the Gray County official plan as secondary settlement area and hazard. There is significant woodland and other wetland features on the property, constraints on the property, and we saw that map there just a second ago. The access again is from Gray Road 4. It is a county arterial, as I mentioned, and that's why the county provides comments on the access and provides entrance permits. The entire lot is within the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority screening area. It was provided to Conservation Authority for their comments. The zoning bylaw amendment application proposing to rezone the lots has also been submitted. It will be presented at a public meeting coming up on March 5th, 2024 in order to receive public comments on the zoning. This is, of course, the consent in front of you. We circulated, as I mentioned, to West Gray Public Works, West Gray Building, County of Gray, and Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. Conservation Authority find the application acceptable. It is again within the screening area, but there's the severed lot and there will be no development within the screened area as proposed. And when the report was written, we didn't have county transportation comments. They have come in since then. And as I mentioned, they did do a pre-submission consultation with the county, and the driveway access and the right of way is acceptable to the county. West Gray Building did note there was an accessory building and a couple other things of concern to them, in particular the septic system and the septic bed. And they're asking to make sure that the septic bed in particular is going to be located on the retained parcel. All of it is on the retained parcel. That will be confirmed at survey stage also. And there was an accessory building that they've asked to have removed that will be removed by the applicants prior to our approval of any severance at the end of the day. We do give them a little bit of leeway in order to satisfy certain conditions as opposed to having them do it all up front. We didn't receive any comments from the public at the time of writing the report. We reviewed the report under the Planning Act, the County of Gray official plan, and the West Gray zoning bylaw. In that particular case, and all those documents that were reviewed, there are no issues with them. They do meet the requirements for severance within a settlement area. The policies are different, of course, within a settlement area boundary than with the ones we just looked at, for example, within a rural area. And it does meet it. Lands will be serviced by septic and water. There's more than enough land available again on the properties, on both properties for that. And as I mentioned, there'll be no disturbance into the Saugeen regulated area or into the hazard area on the property. The zoning bylaw again will be brought forward in order to take a look at placing an appropriate zone on the property at that time. In that regard, we recommend approval of the application of B03-2024 for Roberts. Thank you.
Planner Smith. Okay, so that completes the planner's presentation. Takes 6.2 verbal comments. There's two parts of this. 6.2.1 is committee members. Once we completed that, we'll follow that up with any comments from the public, whether it's virtually or obviously in attendance here today. And that would be 6.2.2. So under 6.2.1, committee members, do you have any comments, questions regarding the specific recommendation or application? Member Hutchison, go ahead, please.
Maybe not so much a question, but maybe a comment that as some members of council may know that this applicant has been before us before. Actually, this one's been ongoing maybe 2-3 years now to get it all in place, and at this point, and hopefully this will get near the end of it. Unfortunately, the applicant didn't realize when they bought this property, I'm sure years and years ago, that they were building within a subdivision of Priceville, which created some difficulties because there were streets and everything that ran in this area, which was very unusual. I think they were being a little bit optimistic in terms of Priceville developing that far out of the hamlet and across the municipal lines. Anyways, looking forward to moving forward on this. I think the planning's been a long time coming, and planner's done a good job to get us to this point, and hopefully we can wrap this up soon. Thank you.
Member Hutchison, any other comments or questions from committee members on this recommendation application? Okay, that will close the committee comments. We're going to move to 6.2.2. And this is the public portion. And I'm going to ask Ms. Noble to help members of the public to participate virtually or in attendance today. And if you could let me know if somebody would like to speak that's online or if you received any letters or text. Okay.
Oh,
Hi there. You can go ahead. If you can state your name
Yes.
for the record, if you can state your name for the record, please, and the floor is yours.
thank you. Christine Loft Planning, and I'm representing the applicants. I did have a PowerPoint, but I do think that Manager Smith has completed a very good overview. So to keep you on time after a long first meeting, I'll leave my comments short. The committee member is right that we did recently go through a process to purchase the road allowances. The land is now all intact. We are proposing the creation of a residential lot. The existing laneway will be and will include an easement that will service both of the properties. We did actually obtain a draft reference plan prior to submitting. So the application before you are the exact numbers that would be finalized on the final reference plan. The easement is 6 meters wide and basically covers what you see as the existing laneway on the property. And the reasoning for that, as Manager Smith indicated, is just the extent of the laneway and the topography between the subject lands and the actual physical part of the highway. And that we had discussed that with the county during pre-consultation. And they were generally in acceptance of that idea. So those are my comments, and we're happy to answer any questions. I'll just say we did review the conditions of the consent, and we accept them, and I understand each of them, including the two regarding the removal of the accessory building and the confirmation for the existing septic system. So we'll complete that as part of the conditions. And those are my comments.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Have we received any correspondence, other correspondence, letters?
I haven't received anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else virtually have any comments? No? Okay, is there anybody in attendance today in the live audience that would have a comment or question regarding this? No? Okay, well, that will complete. Just feels like we're missing something after the last one there, doesn't it? We got to at least go for a little bit here, but that does complete item number 6.2.1 and 6.2.2. So that takes us to item 6.3, and that's decision by the committee. What direction would the committee like to take with this application? Member Eccles, go ahead, please.
Move the recommendation.
Yeah, I have that moved by Member Eccles and Member Sherry. You going to second that, sir? Shane. Okay, comments or questions on the recommendation? Member Eccles, go ahead, sir.
Just one comment. I've never been in favor of easement driveways and whatnot. They always start out really well. 5 years, 10 years down the road, properties change hands and sometimes neighbors don't get along. But in this case, we don't really have much of a choice. This is what the county has given us. And we'll let the neighborhood figure that one out 20 years down the road. And it definitely won't be my problem. Maybe Councillor Forrester, being the youngest here, it'll be his problem to figure out. That's all.
I sure would be like to be here, but I don't want to hear any bad material on it. How's that? And I hope you'd be here beside me, sir. All right. So is everyone clear on the recommendation? We do have it moved and seconded. Everyone's clear on the recommendation? Comments, questions? Okay, well, so we'll call the vote. All those in favor, you raise your hand. See, all members are in favor. There's none opposed. That motion has carried. Now I'm going to go over Planner Smith for item number 6.4. What would be the next steps?
The decision of the committee will be circulated to agencies and to the applicant. There is, in terms of appeal decision, there is a 20-day appeal period for agencies and others who are eligible for appeal. As I mentioned, there is a zoning bylaw amendment that will be required to come forward as a condition of the consent and will be heard by a public meeting in March. Following, if they are successful in their zoning bylaw amendment, which is one of the conditions, they'll be able to complete the remainder of the conditions, bring it forward to the planning department, and then have it registered at that time if successful on all of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Smith. And I'm looking on our agenda here. I don't see it, April the 2nd, or it'll be the 2nd. We do have a meeting on that date. So the next meeting for Committee of Adjustment would be April the 2nd at 2 o'clock. And other than that, that's, everybody mark that down. And that takes us to item number 8. And I would declare that all items on today's agenda are complete, and therefore I say we stand adjourned at 4:06 p.m. Thank you very much, and everyone have a wonderful afternoon.